The Emmy-nominated crime drama surrounding the lives of the Reagan family have been one of the longest-running modern television series, and for good reason too. Of course, if people have been watching it for so long, you'd expect the show to be good, and you'd be absolutely right. But there are still some episodes that are in a league of their own. Here are our picks for the best episodes of Blue Bloods. Starting off at the number 10 spot, there's This Way Out. The 23rd episode of the 3rd season started off by showing how the residents of New York weren't happy with how the Bitterman projects were being handled by the NYPD, and so, by default, Frank as well. A town hall meeting is held to address the issue, but it gets thrown into disarray after Mayor Poole is shot and hospitalized by a mentally ill patient named Hector, who is from the projects. Santana, the head of the Lost Lords gang, also orders a hit on his girlfriend after she gets caught with his drugs. However, the hit fails, and she ends up testifying against him in court. Later, it turns out that Hector had been forced into taking the shot by Lost Lords gang members, leading to Frank making a sweep of the project, cleaning out Santana and his boys once and for all. Next up is The Blue Templar. The 22nd episode of the 1st season reintroduced us to the death of Frank's son Joe before the start of the series. The event had long stuck with his youngest son Jamie, and he decides to share his suspicions with the family. After a drug bust hints at the involvement of dirty cops, Frank disregards protocol in hopes of finally revealing who the Blue Templar is, sneaking around internal affairs in order to run the investigation on his own. However, he then ends up asking for a bit of help from his friends. Turns out that Frank's instincts were right all along, as even an internal affairs investigator turned out to be involved with the drug ring. Malevsky ends up confessing to killing Joe before also killing himself, and Frank finally ends up bringing the hammer down on corrupt cops in the department, taking their shields in the process. Following up is Common Ground. We see Danny connected with a nurse after promising to protect her from her violent ex, a relationship he doesn't end up pursuing since he still feels attached to Linda despite the fact that she's already passed away. Frank is stuck trying to solve a mystery concerning a woman who believes that the NYPD was covering up the death of an inmate. Meanwhile, Eddie and Jamie decide to help an undocumented family while ensuring that they get a new start, with the father finding a new job and home for his family. Looks like helping other people was the common ground of this episode. At lucky number 7, there's The Thin Blue Line. In the 22nd episode of season 7, a drug cartel's fortune is being transported on a route that cuts through New York, bringing the FBI and the NYPD together to work on keeping it safe. That union, hoping to bring down the cartel, ends up going sour after Danny accidentally arrests a cartel member who had been working as an informant for the Bureau. Jamie, though, is tasked with hunting down a serial killer who has been preying on the elderly of New York City. In the end, the serial killer is successfully apprehended, but at the cost of straining the relationship between Mayor Poole and Frank. Moving on, we have Friendship, Love, and Loyalty. The episode sees Danny re-examining a case that Aaron and Anthony had originally handled, leading to some tension rising between the brother and sister. Though the case had all kinds of surprising twists and turns, it ends on a good note, one where the killer is finally caught, though Aaron still ended up having a tough time in court since she had to go up against Jack, her ex-husband. Meanwhile, Jamie's struggling with his feelings for Eddie, especially after she ends up being shot, and Frank's stuck dealing with a bunch of unhappy officers after the mayor made some negative accusations against them. At the halfway point of our list is Something Blue. The 22nd episode of the 9th season showed us the complexities of Eddie and Jamie's relationship as their wedding draws closer, and yeah, there's also a murder case. But that's not that important, is it? There's also a misunderstanding between Eddie and Aaron, Jamie's sister, about witness accounts that could end up straining the relationship between his soon-to-be in-laws. Jamie steps in to try and play peacemaker, but fails spectacularly. However, after finding out that the witnesses had lied under oath, all parties decide to make up. On the other side of things, the obsessive ex-girlfriend ends up innocent in the young man's murder. However, another ex ends up getting implicated by surveillance footage. To finish things off, Frank honors Eddie's request to walk her down the aisle after working on coming up with a toast for the occasion with the whole Reagan family present. Coming up next is The Bitter End. In the penultimate episode of the 3rd season, a distress call ends up bringing Jamie and Vinny to the Bitterman project that's being run by the Lost Lords gang. One of the residents, a young woman who was desperate to leave her life of crime, decides to end both her and her infant son's life. Meanwhile, the DA was bashing heads with Frank because of how the attorney's office had been handling cases coming from the Bitterman Project, an unofficial policy where cases got dropped after witnesses refused to testify. The local gang leader chooses to take on the department directly, leading to Vinny's death. Heading into the top 3, there's risk management. There were plenty of overarching storylines in this episode. Danny and Baez were racing against the clock to find a kidnapped girl who needed heart medication and who would have died if she didn't end up receiving it in time. However, the kidnapping ends up tracing back to her desperate parents, who had taken money from some bad people to save their daughter. At the same time, Sean, Danny's son, wins an essay contest, but was reluctant to attend the ceremony because of the loss of his mother, leaving Danny to reassure him. Plus, Frank also had his hands full in debating with Kelly on how to handle the settlements of lawsuits placed against police officers. The penultimate entry on our list is You're 6. This was one of the warm-hearted entries where the beauty of community, having each other's backs, is on the show. Frank tries to get Jamie, his youngest son, to take the next step in his career, but he prefers to stay on the beat, passing over the opportunity to Eddie. On the other side of things, Erin proposes a date with her ex-husband Jack, which rubs Anthony the wrong way, and he ends up confronting him since he believes he never treated Erin well, which was pretty much true. The lives of Danny and his fellow cops are saved by his archenemy in a shocking turn of events, proving that even criminals can sometimes do the right thing. Before we get to the #1 spot, here are some honorable mentions. First up is Loose Lips. Jamie ends up in the crosshairs of a vindictive boyfriend, simply for speaking to a lady who is beaten and bruised. In fact, he and Eddie barely manage to escape after Jamie's car gets firebombed. The incident set off a chain of events that puts the thug in question before a jury, only for him to get released once again. However, after Eddie goes missing, the whole team comes together to save her. Next up is The Art of War. Tensions flare after a member of the Reagan family gets shot while protecting a patient. The Reagan family decides to take up arms, with Danny leading the charge. Curtis, the attacker, turned out to have been pressured by a gang to carry out the attack after holding his mother hostage. Danny's forced to be innovative, but manages to find and turn Curtis in to get some info on who might know where Hunt, the man who ordered the hit, might be. After keeping his emotions in check and doing his job, Danny gives Frank the ammo he needed to sink Clinton Wallace, the Warrior King boss, for the death of Chief Kent, a federal agent, and land him the death penalty. This episode showed us that even men like Danny, who tend to be a bit reckless, can still be calm and more productive in difficult situations. And finally, at the #1 spot on our list is My Aim Is True. The season 8 finale was a game changer for the Reagan family. It took us from tears to smiles in the span of a single episode, starting with an emotional scene where Danny visits Linda's grave, showing us just how lonely he really is, as well as how much her character had helped in his personal growth. Meanwhile, the Prospect Park 6, a group of 6 men who had been wrongfully convicted for almost over a decade, are finally released from prison, and one of them hires a hitman for revenge on the arresting officers by murdering their loved ones. Eddie also saved Jamie's life, and she officially becomes his fiancée. She even gets to have Sunday dinner with the rest of the family, leading to an addition to the family. Our favorite TV family is finally a proper unit once again. That's a wrap for this video. Do you agree with our list? What episode of Blue Bloods was your favorite? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.